Here are the top stories this hour. 43 al-Shabaab militants killed after attack in Somalia. 4 killed in fresh cholera outbreak in northern Zambia. Plus, 4 dead after shootout in Matamoros, prompt alert from U.S. consulate. Welcome to the World News on VOP TV. I am Kayla Abraham. Now, Somali media is reporting that no fewer than 43 al-Shabaab militants have been killed, with several more wounded following an operation by the nation's military Galgaduud region, central Somalia. The Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism disclosed in a statement issued in Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, that the social network analysis forces also destroyed 3 battle wagon vehicles belonging to the militant group during the operation. Osman Aboko Dube stated that the Somali army and local forces also forwarded another attack in the Middle Shabelle region earlier on Monday. The operation comes as the Somali government intensified its effort to mobilize people to fight al-Shabaab, a move it stated seeks to galvanize public support in the ongoing offensive operation. Now, the Director General of the Zambia National Public Health Institute stated a fresh cholera outbreak broke out in the district last month and that so far a cumulative 103 suspected cases have been recorded, with 45 confirmed as positive. Roma Chilengi told reporters that 2 cases were recorded in the past 24 hours, while 1 was discharged. According to him, health authorities were active on the ground, distributing chlorine and providing other preventive and mitigating measures. He expressed concern that with the onset of the hot season, the situation may worsen due to water shortages. Now, 4 people have been killed in a shootout with Mexican Marines in the border city of Matamoros, triggering an alert to shelter in place from the U.S. consulate in the city across the Rio Grande from Brownsville, Texas. This incident occurred on Monday. The Tamaulipas State Communications Office stated via X that the clash occurred during an operation related to the investigation of a kidnapping. It stated that 4 civilians were killed. Authorities recovered guns and radios, and no Marines were injured. The Navy also confirmed that its personnel were involved but didn't provide any details. The Federal Attorney General's office didn't also respond to a request for information. On Monday morning, the U.S. consulate in Matamoros issued an alert via X saying employees were under a shelter-in-place order until later in the afternoon due to gun violence occurring in the city. In March, 4 Americans were abducted in Matamoros when 1 went for a scheduled cosmetic surgery. 2 of them died from gunshot wounds before they could be rescued. Cells of the Gulf Cartel and other organized crime groups are active in Matamoros and Tamaulipas. Now, at least 3 people have gone missing following their fire truck that was swept away by floodwaters after Typhoon Heikki hits the east and south of China, causing heavy rain and wind on Tuesday. State News reported that a fire truck carrying 9 people was swept away by floodwaters during a rescue operations in Chili village of Yongtai County in China's eastern Fujian province. It stated further that 6 of them have been rescued so far, but 3 are still missing. Typhoon Heikki, the 11th typhoon of the year, made landfall on the coast of China's Fujian province and South China's Guangdong province early on Tuesday morning, bringing heavy rain and winds of up to 20 and 18 meters per second near its center. On Monday, local authorities also cancelled multiple train operations and closed schools in different cities in the country's southeast coastal areas after the typhoon crossed Taiwan on Sunday, in which at least 40 people were injured and 732 reported incidents. The South China Sea Forecasting and Disaster Reduction Center also issued a yellow alert for large waves, warning of a storm surge of 30 to 70 centimeters along the eastern coast of Guangdong and 3 to 5 meter high waves in the northeastern part of South China Sea. The weather agency forecasted that heavy rain is expected to continue until Wednesday. Now, thousands of people attending the Burning Man Festival in the U.S. state of Nevada began departing the site on Monday after being stranded by heavy rains that hit towards the end of the event. On Sunday, a driving ban was enforced for nearly 80,000 participants, including those with trucks, recreational vehicles, and cars due to downpours that transformed the Black Rock Desert area into a muddy terrain from rain through Saturday. The organizers announced that the ban was lifted on Monday. As of midday Monday, approximately 64,000 people remained on site. Organizers also advised attendees to consider delaying their departure until Tuesday, citing significant congestion throughout Monday. The Burning Man Festival, an annual event, draws participants from around the world and typically spans a week, concluding on Labor Day weekend. One of the festival's most iconic features in the burning of a large wooden effigy known as the Man, which traditionally takes place near the event's conclusion. Meanwhile, China has insisted its Belt and Road Initiative has borne fruit in Italy amid growing expectations that Rome will exit Beijing's signature infrastructure drive. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi told visiting Italian Deputy Prime Minister Antonio Tajani that growing cooperation between the countries has led to Italian products entering thousands of Chinese households. Wang stated that bilateral trade grew from $50 billion to nearly $80 billion, and Italy's exports to China increased by about 30% during the past 5 years. Tajani disclosed that Italy supported frank, open dialogue on principles and rights, including at the European Union level. Italy is the only group of 7 economy to have signed onto the Belt and Road Initiative, but has signaled growing unease with the agreement in recent months. Italian Defense Minister Julio Crosetto in July described then Premier Giuseppe Conte's decision to join the initiative in 2019 as an atrocious act that had done little to boost Italian exports while flooding the country with Chinese imports. The Belt and Road Plan proposes massive investments in infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and ports to recreate the ancient Silk Road trade routes linking Europe and Asia. Critics have cast the scheme as a vehicle for Beijing to expand its geopolitical influence, including by saddling poorer countries with unsustainable debts. Now, air defense systems have destroyed 2 drones over the Kaluga and Tver regions, which border the Moscow region, on Tuesday. A 3rd drone was shot down closer to the Russian capital over the Istra district of the Moscow region. According to initial information, Moscow's mayor Sergei Sobyanin stated that the attack drones, which targeted Moscow, were destroyed. Sobyanin also disclosed on the Telegram messaging app that there had been no casualties. Debris from the downed drone in the Istra district damaged a household, and drone debris in the Tver region fell in the Zavidovo village. Zavidovo is home to Ros, an official residence palace of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Putin's main residences are the Novo-Ogarovyo residence in the Moscow region, as well as the Grand Kremlin Palace, where official events are held. Russian news agencies also reported on Tuesday that almost 50 flights were cancelled or postponed at the 4 major airports around the capital, Vnukovo, and many others. Operations resumed later in the morning. Now, the United States has accused Russia's Wagner Group of providing surface-to-air missiles to the paramilitary rapid support forces on one side in Sudan's ongoing conflict that has displaced nearly 1.3 million people. Thursday's allegations against the mercenary group came as the U.S. Treasury Department also imposed sanctions on Wagner's leaders in Mali, accusing him of trying to obtain weapons for Russia's war in Ukraine. The Treasury, in a statement, disclosed that the surface-to-air missiles in Sudan have contributed to a prolonged armed conflict that only results in further chaos in the region. Last month, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken voiced concern about the prospect of Wagner's involvement in Sudan, saying the group simply brings more death and destruction with it. The RSF and the Sudanese military, led by 2 rival generals, have been locked in a fight to control the state and its resources since mid-April, one that has killed hundreds of people. Now, Japan has lodged a protest with the World Trade Organization in response to China's blanket ban on seafood imports. State News reported that Hirokazu Matsuno, the Japanese government's top spokesman, stated that Tokyo has submitted a document to the WTO protesting Beijing's ban on importing seafood, which China imposed following Japan's release of radioactive water into the sea on August 24 on Tuesday. Earlier, Beijing notified the WTO of its emergency imports ban on Thursday, which Matsuno stated prompted Japan to lodge its protest. According to the document, China's import suspension is totally unacceptable, and Tokyo will continue to ask Beijing to immediately repeal its measure. Matsuno stated that Japan has demanded that China review the import ban in accordance with the rules of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Trade Agreement, to which both Tokyo and Beijing are signatories. Tokyo began releasing treated nuclear waste from the crippled Fukushima power plant last month, eliciting criticism from neighbors, particularly China. South Korean opposition parties have also decried Tokyo's release of the nuclear waste, while the government has reaffirmed its commitment to sticking to its original plan of releasing the water. People in Japan, South Korea, and China have stopped eating Japanese seafood, while Tokyo and Seoul have taken measures to assuage the affairs, including providing financial support to the fishery industry. Seoul-based news reported that the South Korean government on Tuesday decided to spend a record budget this year to prop up consumption of seafood. President Yoon Suk-yeol, the government will spend an additional approximately $60.36 million in reserve funds to encourage people to have more seafood and to better support the fishing industry. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida also announced a new package of over $141 million on Monday to support the fishing industry. Now, North Korea leader Kim Jong-un may travel to Russia for talks with President Vladimir Putin over the possible sale of arms to support Moscow's war in Ukraine, as the two U.S. adversaries continue to strengthen ties. U.S. officials say potential arms sales from North Korea to Russia were discussed during a trip to Pyongyang in July by Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, and first such visit by a Russian defense minister since the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. The Kremlin stated on Tuesday that it could not confirm the report, while Watson did not say when or where in Russia Putin might meet with Kim, who rarely leaves his isolated communist country and has not ventured abroad since before the pandemic. When he does go overseas, as when he visited Russia in 2019, he usually travels by armored train. Watson added that the U.S. urges North Korea to cease its arms negotiations with Russia and abide by the public commitments that Pyongyang has made to not provide or sell arms to Russia. Last week, the White House disclosed that arms negotiations between North Korea and Russia were actively advancing, and that Kim and Putin had exchanged letters pledging to increase their cooperation following Shoigu's visit. Now, the First Lady of the United States, Joe Biden, has been tested positive for COVID-19 on Monday. President Joe Biden tested negative, according to the White House report. An administration official told reporters on Monday that there are no changes to White House COVID protocols or to the president's schedule at this time. The diagnosis of 72-year-old Joe Biden comes amid a busy week for Joe Biden, who delivered a Labor Day speech in Philadelphia earlier in the day. The president is scheduled to present the Medal of Honor to an Army captain in a White House ceremony on Tuesday before departing for the G20 summit in India on Thursday. Now, leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations met in Indonesia's capital on Tuesday, with a prolonged political crisis in Myanmar and disputes in the South China Sea expected to be on the agenda. Myanmar has been ravaged by deadly violence since a 2021 military coup deposed Aung San Suu Kyi government and unleashed a bloody crackdown on dissent. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, long decried by critics as a toothless talking shop, has been left divided over how to deal with Myanmar's junta rulers and its own failed diplomatic attempts to resolve the crisis. A draft joint communique sent by journalists left blank its Myanmar section, belying the lack of consensus in the 10-member bloc whose peace efforts have so far been fruitless. Leaders will try to hash out a united position on the conflict as Myanmar's junta ignores international criticism and refuses to engage with its opponent. Chair Indonesia has pushed for the junta, which is barred from the bloc's high-level meetings, to enforce a 5-point plan agreed 2 years ago to end the violence and restart negotiations. A Southeast Asian diplomat told reporters that there was expected to be an announcement that the Philippines would take over the chairmanship of ASEAN in 2026 from Myanmar. Now, Premier Li Qiang will attend the 18th G20 summit to be held in New Delhi, India on September 9 and 10, when leaders and representatives of the group of 20 nations will gather to discuss measures to boost global economic recovery. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning stated that Li was invited by the government of India, the rotating presidency of G20 for 2023, on Monday. The summit takes place at a time when the global economy is facing increased downward pressure and there are growing difficulties in achieving sustainable development worldwide amid mounting challenges such as the climate change and the ongoing Ukraine crisis. China hopes that the New Delhi summit will help build up consensus, send a message of confidence to the world, and promote prosperity and development. The G20 comprises 19 countries, which are Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, United Kingdom, and the United States, and the European Union, representing around 85% of the global GDP, over 75% of the global trade, and about 2/3 of the world population. It is the premier intergovernmental forum for international economic cooperation and plays an important role in shaping and strengthening global architecture and governance on all major international economic issues. As the host of this year's summit, India gives priority to green development, climate finance, and lifestyle for environment, accelerated, inclusive, and resilient growth, accelerating progress on sustainable development goals, technological transformation and digital public infrastructure, multilateral institutions for the 21st century, as well as women-led development. And now, Niger's Republic military leaders have reopened the country's airspace to all commercial flights. A transport ministry spokesperson made this known on Monday. According to the reporters, the junta closed the airspace on August 6 after seizing power in a coup. They had initially closed Niger's airspace, citing the threat of military intervention from the West African region bloc. However, reporters stated that junta did not immediately give a reason for lifting the ban. The closure had forced Air France and other European carriers to suspend some flights and take longer routes across the African continent. Landlocked Niger is more than twice the size of France, and many flights paths across Africa would normally pass above it. The regional bloc had given the junta a 7-day ultimatum for the reinstatement of President Mohamed Bazoum, whose government was toppled on July 26, 2023. A few days after calling the bluff of the Economic Community of West African states, the junta shut its airspace indefinitely. Burkina Faso and Mali had indicated interest to fight on the side of Niger in the event that ECOWAS carried out its threat to invade Niger. However, ECOWAS has prioritized dialogue after its threats failed to rein in the military regime. The coup, which took place in Gabon last week, made the Niger situation complex. Meanwhile, earlier on Monday, the coup leader was sworn in as transitional president. The Central African Regional Bloc, known as Economy West Community of Central African States, says it has suspended Gabon's membership in response to last week's coup. General Brice Oligui Nguema seized power just after Ali Bongo was declared to have won a third term as president. He has not given a time frame for returning the country to civilian rule. As leaders from Central Africa sat around the table and decided to suspend Gabon because of the coup, there may have been a few moments of self-reflection. Hosting the meeting was Theodora Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, who stated neighboring country Gabon was a threat to peace, security, and stability in the region. The president of Equatorial Guinea is now 81 and has been in power since 1979. His family, like that of Ali Bongo in Gabon, has been accused of large-scale looting of state resources and severe oppression of the opposition. Now, a summit will also be about challenging the idea that African nations are solely victims suffering the impact of climate change despite bearing little responsibility for it. Instead, the summit will aim to show all the ways that Africa can transform its economy by playing a major role in accelerating global decarbonization. Convened by President William Ruto of Kenya in conjunction with the African Union, the summit will address the urgency of marshalling resources to respond to the climate crisis amid signs that we're entering uncharted territory. Africa is ready to play its part, and as this summit will show, it offers many opportunities for green capital investment. The rest of the world can accelerate and amplify this by partnering with and investing in the continent, as well as supporting market-building initiatives to ensure it has the capacity to absorb the capital needed. If they do so, then Africa and her young dynamic population can truly play their role as a global climate change. Now, about 1 million people have crossed into neighboring countries, noting that at least 2 million children have fled their homes since the conflicts in Sudan erupted more than 4 months ago. The reporter stated that earlier on Monday, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees appealed for $1 billion to provide essential aid and protection to more than 1.8 million people expected to arrive in 5 neighboring countries by the end of 2023 to flee the ongoing conflict in Sudan. It's added that more than 1 million refugees, returnees, and third country nationals have already fled the country. Sudan has been witnessing deadly armed clashes between the Sudan Armed Forces and Rapid Support Forces in Khartoum and other areas since April 15, which left over 3,000 people dead and more than 6,000 injured. Now, Kenya's president has stated that the country is seriously considering abolishing any visa requirement in a few months. Ruto stated that Kenya was the origin of humankind and therefore it was unfair to ask visitors for visas as they were coming home. He stated this while opening the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi to African and international leaders and delegates. Since assuming presidency in September 2022, Ruto has waived visa restrictions for a few countries, including Eritrea, Djibouti, Comoros, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Indonesia. Ruto has previously stated that his administration intends to abolish visa restriction for all countries in the African Union. And that's it on the World News on VOP TV. A VOP Business Show coming up next. I am Kayla Abraham. Thanks for watching.